Hey everybody, movie reviewer next door here, and I'm back with another review. This time, I saw the rhythm section. This is sorry about that. This is a 2020 drama thriller spy film directed by Reed Morano, and it stars Blake Lively, Jude Law, Sterling K. Brown, and uh, yeah. In this film, when she discovers the plane crash that claimed the lives of her family was no accident, Stephanie Patrick enters the dark, complex world of international espionage seeking vengeance. With nothing left to lose, Stephanie transforms from victim to assassin and discovers that neither revenge nor the truth are what they appear. So, what did I think of the rhythm section? Well, I, ever since I originally saw this on Prime, I have always really, really enjoyed this film. Now, I don't think it's a 10 anymore. I do still think it's a 9. But this is a film that I think a lot of people have been very unfair to. And I'll get to why. But I think this is a very effective drama, thriller, spy film that definitely takes it from it's a different side of this type of genre that you see than you usually see. And I think it was done quite well. But let me get to the cast, actually. It's getting a little hot. Blake Lively plays Stephanie Patrick. She's a young woman lost her family in a plane crash. She's been working as a prostitute, and basically this journalist comes up to her and is like, "I know that it wasn't an accident, and I want your help with it." Blake Lively is a great actress. I've seen her in quite a few things. I liked her in The Town. Um, uh, I actually really enjoyed her in a film called Hick, which I'd say is also a bit of an underrated film with Chloe Grace Moretz, Eddie Redmayne, um, Juliette Lewis, Rory Culkin. Very underrated thriller. Um, but yeah, I think she's very good in this. Well, no, she's fantastic in this. Her performance sells the entire movie. It's a lot of why I love this movie so much. I think she really embodies this character. She plays it realistically, and she makes mistakes that I think uh, are human, and I'll get to that. But uh, Jude Law plays Ian Boyd, or B. He is Raza Joffrey's character's contact, and she ends up training with him in order to exact revenge on the people who killed her family. I really like Jude Law. I always have. He's uh in one of what I consider to be one of the most underrated films of all time, Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. I love him in that film. But I think he plays this character pretty well. Sterling K. Brown plays Sarah, who's basically he's an information broker who used to be former CIA or was former CIA. Um, I really like Sterling K. Brown. I really liked him. A lot of people from underrated films in this. Underrated film called Hotel Artemis that did not get nearly as much talk about it as I wish it would get. Jodie Foster was in that. She gives an incredible performance in that. But yeah, Sterling K. Brown is a very impressive actor. And here's the thing with this film. When this came out, it was I'd say a combination of bad release date and bad word of mouth and bad advertising because it came out at the very end of January, which is usually what is considered a dumping month. January and February and some other month are considered dumping months for films that studios will quietly release because they don't have much um, faith in them making a ton of money. That's usually, I think that's when Taken 2 and 3 were released. A bunch of action movies, horror movies that the studio doesn't really think will do anything. They release them at that time to kind of get them out of the way, usually use them as a tax write-off or something. But that can't be the thing with this because this film came from Eon Productions, which is the company that releases that the James Bond films popularized, along with United Artists. Eon Productions, other than this film and a film called Call Me Buana from back in the 60s, it was actually advertised in a pretty funny scene in From Russia with Love, where a character comes out of what's her face's mouth. I can't remember her name. Um, but other than this and that, these are like the pretty much every other movie Eon Productions has produced have been James Bond films. So what you get on a bunch of the Blu-rays, the DVDs, the posters is this tagline from the producers of James Bond, which can help sell your film, but I also think it gave people unrealistic expectations. Because also on the back it says Stephanie transforms from victim to assassin and discovers that neither revenge nor the truth are what they appear in this action-packed thriller from the producers of James Bond. Now, with this, the trailer also did this, shows all of the action, makes this look like it's an action movie when it really isn't. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Because when I watched this, I did not know anything about it. I just knew it was Blake Lively, Jude Law. It was in the thriller category on Amazon Prime. And I was looking for something to watch because this was back when I was watching random Amazon movies before I started reviewing anything. I still rated things, I think, on Letterboxd, but I mostly just watched stuff, downloaded it, watched it while I was at college, like in my downtime. And with that, uh, I do still really enjoy this film. I do. But I feel like a lot of the people who gave this film shit were expecting an action film. And I feel bad for them going in with that expectation, but what is here is still a good film. Even if it's not like an action-packed, thrill-a-minute movie, I think it's still a very well-made character journey, like film with believable characters, a very tight pacing for the most part. I do think the first half of the film sags a tiny bit at places and certain scenes feel a little bit too long. Like cut it just a tiny bit. There's some okay, there's I know I'm kind of going all over the place. It's kind of hard to talk about this because I don't have a ton to say other than I really, really enjoy it. I'll try my best though. Um, one of the biggest things I can say about this film is that the deleted scenes and extended scenes, most of them I think are pretty compelling. There's an added side story with because our main character is a prostitute and the guy that she works for in these couple of deleted scenes, one of them shows him being basically just evil, and then another one shows her killing him and getting revenge on him for how he's treated her. Which I think that could have been a very interesting thing to add in, as it wouldn't have made the runtime a lot longer. This film isn't insanely long. This feels like the kind of film that would be like 2.5 hours, but it's an hour and 49 minutes, which I think is a pretty good enough runtime. And even with the scenes added, it would still be under 2 hours long. Um, I don't think all of the deleted scenes or extended scenes need to be there because some of them it's over explaining certain things, like when she buys a gun from her dealer, it's just over explaining some stuff. It doesn't need to be there. There's a scene where she runs after a possible suspect for our villain, and it's it's a bit unneeded, but a couple of the scenes I do think could have been added back in. Um, there are quite a few special features on this. There's like at least 40 minutes worth of special features here, which is pretty good. Um, but yeah, the the main draw of this film, I think, is Blake Lively's character, which again, these quotes on the back do not help. Blake Lively is a cold-blooded assassin because the reason I say it's not an action film is because our main character really isn't a badass until the very end of the film. And even then, they play her realistically. Blake Lively is not a very physically imposing woman. And I'm not saying this because she's a woman, but I'm saying as opposed to, or in comparison to the men that she's up against, the first time she's out in the field against somebody, she almost dies. And I think that makes it a lot more interesting because she's not a perfect character like in a lot of these female-led action spy thriller films. And even though I do enjoy quite a few of those, The Protege, Kate, Gunpowder Milkshake, Unknown, Close, a lot of them I've really enjoyed. But one thing that I've always wished that some of them would get right is when they go for the more like darker, depressing tone, that they stick with that and make the characters feel more real around that. And I think this character feels very real. Yes, there's some kind of like, I don't know if I'd say girl bossy, but some kind of like, ooh, boss moments near the end. But for the most part, I was fine with it because up until then, she had been learning from her mistakes and she learned to be more skilled. And the last thing that she does in the film, I think, is pretty badass. And, well, a couple of the last things she does, with how she deals with our actual villain, I won't say who it is. I really wanted to do this movie or to review this movie to get people to actually watch this and give their real thoughts because I do think this is an underrated gem of a film. If you go in expecting what it actually is, which is a drama with an actual, like, believable female character, not strong female character, she becomes stronger by the end, but one that fights in well, how do I say this? They don't make her a girl boss, which is a good thing. They don't make her Mary Sue. They give her a backstory that actually makes you feel bad for her, makes her feel like a real character. And they don't make her fight in an unrealistic way that like they don't have her fighting up against like 15 men at a time. The most she's ever up against at a time is two, but that's mostly when she's like shooting at them. This isn't a movie with a bunch of shootouts. Most of the fights are very gritty, very dark, very like spur of the moment. It's not very choreographed. And I kind of like how they do it in this because it feels more real. It feels like spur of the moment, like a real fight would be. And again, while love films that do the other thing when they do it right, like Kate, it is also nice to see something done a bit more realistic sometimes. And I think that's a big reason to see this film, is to see how a realistic female character becoming a badass by the end of the film should be done. Again, I do have a couple issues. I do think some of the deleted scenes should have been left in, as I do think they bring some closure to certain parts of the film or add some backstory. And the first half could be trimmed up a little bit in certain places, certain scenes go on a bit too long. But for the most part, um, excuse me. For the most part, this is a very well done film. Oh yeah, the score. The score by Steve Mazzaro was really beautiful. Um, the action itself, I will at least mention some pretty cool moments. There's a nice one take fight between Jude Law and Blake Lively that I think is well done and pretty cool to see. And apparently, I think she broke her wrist during this scene, and I think the footage is in the film, which that's fucked. I didn't really spot it, but it's a pretty brutal fight. There's a really cool car chase that's stitched together to look like one take. It's very impressive looking. Um, there's like a little shootout. It's okay, but for the most part, this is a thriller or a drama, and I think it does that very well. So, if you see this film on streaming or anything, oh, I'd say give it a chance. But yeah, that was my review of the rhythm section. If you've seen the film, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. If you have any recommendations, put them down there as well. And movie reviewer next door out.